Well, thank you for the PFAS question. That's one we're deeply concerned about at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in the Dayton area, and I thanks for your leadership on that, and we look forward to working with GAO on coming up with better ways to deal with it nationally. Just quick question on the high-risk list now, including the drug misuse question that you talked about. This has been going on, as you know, for decades, and specifically the opioid issue over the last 10 or 15 years. Why now? Why did you put it on the high-risk list? What has changed?
Yeah, I was concerned about the escalating rate of overdose deaths. And I was also concerned, has been mentioned, I've been in government for decades now. This has always been an issue as long as I've been president in government. Yeah. And I wanted to try to do something about it and raise the profile. I don't believe we are dealing with the demand side of this issue as much as we need to. We need to deal with interdiction. We need to deal with treatment, of course. But unless we reduce the demand for these products through education and prevention and other things, we're never going to make headway. Drugs has always been a problem. The only thing has been is with drug of choice, and you know what's happening. And then this prescription drug element that was added to it brought a different dimension to it as well. So I'm concerned. As a father of 3 and a grandfather of 8, you know, I'm concerned about.
I'm glad you included it this year, and I think one thing I thought you might say is that ONDCP clearly has not followed the national drug policy, which is what you lay out in your report, that they've actually missed putting out the strategies they're supposed to put out under law. Specifically, they have statutory requirements that they're supposed to be talking about in their 5-year projections that they have not done. So my hope is that these recommendations would improve ONDCP's leadership role, clarify their mission, and make them a better coordinating body. So we appreciate you doing that. Second question is with regard to this issue of worker training. I appreciate the fact that you got into that a little bit in your report. I hear back home the same thing now. I heard it before the pandemic, which is we're looking for workers, but skilled workers, we can't find them. So whether it's a welder or whether it's an IT professional, a coder, or whether it's a truck driver, that the skilled workers are in demand again. And in fact, there are lots of companies in Ohio who are advertising. I'm told there are more people now looking for work than there have been since the pandemic began, which is good news for the economy. But again, the same issue that was present before. In terms of how you get at this issue, have you looked much at what the federal government does vis-a-vis someone who wants to go to college versus somebody who wants to get a short-term training program? And shouldn't there be some more parity there? Not to take, for instance, Pell Grants away from colleges or universities at all, but to also offer a Pell if you want to get what is pretty expensive, but which is a training program that gets you an industry-recognized credential, like a welding degree.
Right.
And shouldn't that be something that we should be promoting given our economic need right now in our workforce shortage with skilled workers? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I mean, there's a range of skills that are needed. There are things that people can adapt to. I'll go back and take a look at that issue and see what we've done in the past, but I'll certainly look more carefully at that issue in the future. Same thing's true of even community college degrees and things of that nature. I think the federal government can diversify, and what we also found is a lot of best practices occur in some of the worker training programs, but the Department of Labor doesn't share that among the states, so they don't really have ideas on how they can refine their practices. So we made that recommendation as well. Yeah, but I agree completely with you, and we'll look more carefully at that issue.
And the final one mentioned is the cyber issue, and Senator Peters and I have worked on this issue over time, and so frustrating to have this massive hack, and hopefully it's a wake-up call for all of us, but specifically with regard to federal coordination. You talk about the fact that we have yet to fill this position, which is really a White House position, as I understand it, but we also have not given CISA, which is the Department of Homeland Security, cybersecurity entity, all of the resources it needs, along with the authority that we have provided. What's your thought on that? Who should be coordinating this? We have DOD involved. We obviously have the intelligence agencies involved. And we have DHS involved, we have the White House involved, OMB's involved to make sure agencies are doing what they're supposed to do, but who should be coordinating it? Shouldn't there be more accountability in this process?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the rare reasons we rated them down, was there wasn't enough accountability and clear delineation of roles and responsibilities. My thought on this is you need a whole-of-government approach to this issue. CISA can play a very important role, but they don't decide who appoints the chief information officers in the agencies. They don't pick the chief information security officers. That's the agency head's responsibility, so they need to be involved. OMB needs to be involved, and they haven't been as involved as they have been in the past and need to be in the future. Both they can help both in making sure the resource investments are there properly, set out the right policies and guidance, and make sure that they get vetted during the budget preparation process. As a former head of OMB, you recognize how powerful that process can be.
Yep.
I believe, and CISA is basically civilian side of things. They're not DOD, so you need the National Security Council and DOD involved with the intel agencies. That's why I think this statutory provision in the White House is so important. The other thing that's important, Senator, is to get the message out that anybody that touches a federal computer, whether it be a federal employee or a contractor or touches a system, is a potential risk to the system in introducing malware. So we need a whole of government thing. This has some technical dimensions, but in large part, it's a management problem, an awareness, and trying to deal with having the right workforce associated with doing this. So I think you need it at the White House level. CISA play a role, National Security Council, DOD, but also we need to build trust with the private sector to exchange information. We talked a little bit about that this morning at the press event. That is critical because, you know, most of the assets, computing assets, are in the private sector hands. Unless we have sharing between the government and the private sector on a more easily flow basis, we're never going to get ahead of this issue, because it's like having intelligence but having it compartmentalized,
Right.
and not sharing it, and that's dangerous.
Well, we want to work with you on this one, and I think the report is very helpful, but we've talked about a legislative response to increase the coordination and the accountability, as you say. And I think, you know, there's only so much you can do from a legislative perspective if you authorize a position and it's not filled. So we also have to put pressure on the administration to step up. I assume that they would want to do that. But thank you again for all your work. We look forward to continuing to work with you every day on these issues of oversight that are a critical part of the mission of this committee. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
Absolutely.